Hi guys, greetings, peace. Well, today we're going to talk about how you can run your car, truck, heat your house, do your cooking on potatoes or tomatoes or horsehair or cow poo, any kind of poo. In fact, anything on the planet that grows or once grew can be you can run your car on, and that includes plastic bottles because they at some point came from the ground. And if they're oil based, they're likely to have come from organic life. I don't quite believe the fossil fuel story, but that's another subject altogether, which we'll deal with, along with some many thought and mind provoking ideas and inventions that are little publicised these days. So these first few videos are really just to lay the groundwork for some much more exciting and thought-provoking stuff, staying at this time with what can actually be done or has been done in the past and can be done right now. We've already done a short video about how you can run your car on wood and also poo and tomatoes and potatoes and rubber gloves and rubber hoses by way of changing them into a gas and what's called pyrolyzing them, but more accurately just heating them until they become something like charcoal. One thing I forgot to mention in that video is that pyrolysis is immediate if you have enough heat. You know this when you strike a match and blow it out, and you have black charcoal-like, carbon-like end on the stick. So it's an almost instantaneous thing, not something that takes hours and hours, as conventional wisdom would have it. So I've made great big blocks of wood into charcoal very quickly indeed by getting the temperature up to something like 1,000 or more degrees. You need, strictly speaking, I think about 500 degrees C for pyrolysis, or should we call charcoalization? That's the term I prefer, something like that. I don't like official and contemporary terminology, and the conventional terminology for what we're going to talk about today is biogas. But really, the correct way to look at this is in terms of methane. So we're going to talk, as I've said, about running cars, trucks, houses, housing heat, housing cooking on anything that once grew. And this is called a methane digester or digestion. And this relies on, quite simply, bacteria. And bacteria are absolutely not to be underestimated. They're quite phenomenal things in their own right, as we know from brewing vodka, or we know from brewing wine. That's a similar sort of principle. It's an anaerobic digestion. In other words, it happens without the use of air. Aerobic would be if it was bacteria in the open and in the air. This is anaerobic. And so, as the name suggests, to do this, we have to have a metal cylinder or a concrete concrete container. It can be anything from several times the size of a house, or it can be as small as a gas cylinder. All you need is a way to introduce the organic matter without air getting in, and that's very easily done, but I need to show you a drawing. You basically introduce it below the water line, and a bit like a kind of a net. I can't really explain it, and I'm not well enough or organised enough yet to sort of show you diagrams, but these digesters are very common in South America, and in particular China. And if you want to see a really simple DIY model of it, maybe Chinese China's a good example. In the villages right across China, they have these things. Sometimes they're just trenches in the ground with polythene, and the gas is produced and collected in like a polythene bubble, or there's other ways to collect the gas, which we'll talk about in a moment. But first of all, I need to discuss how this is done. So basically, you need, we think of it as a yeast or a culture to start off the digestion. And traditionally, this was done with, for example, pig poo and chicken poo. That seems to have the right cultures to set off the breaking down, the digestion of whatever it is that you're making the gas from. And I think the most typical example is waste fruit and vegetables from one's own kitchen or one's own canteen or restaurant. The peelings and the apple cores and the waste baked beans and chips and lettuce and cabbage and cucumber and tomato and broccoli. Any bits and bobs can go into your or the container that's the digester, as long as it has the right cultures in there. Now once you've got the thing active, which is done by controlling the amount of air getting in, and most importantly of all, controlling the temperature. I think it's to about, well, I think it might be 37 degrees, quite low, but would require, it might be a bit less than that, but it might require some heat to get it going, and then it might be that it would produce enough heat, if well insulated, to keep it going. I think it would depend on the climate that you're in. Certainly in South America and China, they don't have any outside heat source, but this far from the equator, maybe we would do. I'm not entirely sure about that. But once you've got this sealed container with your organic matter in, and you've got the right cultures in there, as I said, from chicken or pig poo, quite simple. Other ways as well, that the organic material will start quite magically, really, and marvelously turn into methane. Now, methane is a fantastic, has a very high, a very acceptable calorific value, and it also burns very clean. And evidence of that is the flame being somewhere between clear and blue. The more yellow a flame is, the more sort of volatiles or hydrocarbons it has, which are fine, but might cause issues where they're being combusted. In this case, we're talking about cooking, it wouldn't matter. Heating water, it wouldn't matter for the house. But running a car, truck, bus, lorry, whatever, which has a spark plug and a regular internal combustion engine, it's handy if the gas is clean, which methane is. So you could have a big inner tube on the roof rack or of the car to store the gas, and you can store the gas in a tracked inner tube as it's produced, and you'll see the inner tube expand, or alternatively you can compress the gas into a liquid. So if you're doing it on a quasi-commercial scale, you'd probably opt for doing that, and that's a little bit tricky because you'd need like a 2 or 3 stage compressor to do it. The guy I'm thinking of that first did this, sort of 80 or more years ago, 60 years maybe, ran around the west country of England in his Hillman car, I think. I'm not quite sure how he compressed it. I think under its, naturally it will only reach a certain pressure in the inner tube, I think. I don't think it would just go up ad infinitum and blow itself up. I think you do have to have a compressor if you're going to have huge quantities of it. Forgive my ignorance a little bit, but this container that has all of the organic matter in, they have some kind of automated stirring mechanism. One good way to do that is to circulate some of the methane and bubble it through the liquid, or have a magnetic stirrer in there to keep it agitated. I think that's something that they do. Another thing might be a pressure gauge. So just to recap, we're going to talk about how we can run any vehicle or heater house with methane. Methane being a natural product of anything that ever or has grow or is growing, with the use of the carefully chosen bacteria. The raw material, the organic material, does have a calorific value, and forgive me, I've forgotten. It will be between 2 and 5 kilowatts per kilogram, I think. But if I remember, it, I'm not sure how efficient the process is. I've got a feeling that it might be at the lower end of that scale, whereas when we're running a car on wood, we're at the upper end of that scale, 4 or 5 kilowatts per kilogram of wood or organic matter. But that process is much, much dirtier. So if I was going to do any of these things again, I would most certainly go for running things on methane. That would be what I've concluded from my experiences. And as I've already said, try and concentrate on old school information or Victorian technology, or even technology from the 1940s, 50s, because they are without the modern, I don't know what you'd call it, kind of technocratic gobbledygook talk of like the more complicated or obtuse it sounds, the more clever it must be. That's not the case. The simpler the language, the simpler the equipment, the better off you are. So we're talking here about being roughly in business rather than exactly out of business. And one question I'd like to ask you, if anybody knows, is about the hydrogen content, if any, of this process. If anybody would like to leave me a comment on that, I'd be very pleased. I think we'd all be pleased if you were able to subscribe to this channel. I'll give you another reason for doing that in a minute. And then my hope, I'm seriously ill at the moment with depression and anxiety, so I'm going to be talking about my recovery, hopefully, from that, and the recovery of my all-terrain four-wheel drive 60-year-old fire engine, shown in my other videos, video casts, which has got a house built into it and a log fire and a double bed and a bath, and has a lot of alternative technology in it, not only things like solar power, but regenerative braking and heat recovery from the engine, and a heat pump, and many other things that we can do right here, right now. And it's for future videos where we'll push the envelope a bit further and say, well, can we get energy from the atmosphere? Can we get energy from water? How might that be possible? Why haven't we seen it? When will we see it? And so that's the promise for the future, which is why I would like you to subscribe and go on this journey of discovery with me and with you. First of all, looking at what can be done right now, then looking at some physics anomalies, things that just don't make sense. And as I keep saying, more books can be written about what we don't know than what we do know, and then we can see that as fantastic as modern technology is, it's a very small part of the complete picture, and the real technological revolution is yet to arrive. My personal view is that science fiction is much closer to science fact than science fact, and this is something that becomes more and more obvious the longer you ponder over and incubate inconsistencies in all the sciences. My special interest is in particular physics, which is absolutely full of holes. Modern physics now has broken down completely. There's just too big a gap between celestial mechanics and terrestrial mechanics. More succinctly or easier to understand is the immense ravine between quantum physics and contemporary physics, let alone muddying the water with metaphysics, which is also part of physics. So it's very, very exciting times that we're coming into, because I think some cats are going to be let out of the bag, and that's really my main motivation for doing these videos, is to kind of let some cats out of the bag eventually, not now, so that younger people or people more able of any age can help kickstart a brave new world where energy is free and where energy serves us and where energy is produced on the micro local level, and doesn't leave us held ransom to the huge companies that charge huge amounts of money for something that after all is born in the ground. There's nothing in this world, correct me if I'm wrong, that didn't first come from the ground. Even the space station came from the ground. Anything, whether it's plastic, metal, aluminium, gold, or wood, it came from the ground. And really, digestion or wood gasification in my previous video, it's kind of an alchemy, really. It's pure majesty. And as Tesla once said, if you tug on nature, you'll very soon find that the whole damn thing is connected to it. And this, at the end of the day, is the secret. As soon as you create some kind of imbalance in nature, the whole of nature moves to recreate the balance. And this will be the fundamental science behind wood gasification and methane production from a digester. But that's going too deep. We're not quite ready for that at the moment. We'll just accept these things on face value. We'll accept that if you heat wood or any organic material, you'll get gas, which has a calorific value. Or if you digest without oxygen organic material, you'll have another gas, this time methane. The previous one with wood gasification is carbon monoxide and hydrogen. This video is about methane, which is, in my view, the way forward. The other way forward is thermoelectricity, which is electricity from heat. And that's very, very exciting. Most certainly you can run a fridge or a freezer from a bonfire, which is an interesting thought to have. As we saw in the last video, you can also run a petrol engine from a bonfire just by sticking a pipe in the bonfire. And now we're going to show how we can run a generator, car, truck, house, cooking, etc. By sticking a pipe into a container that already has in it simply some poo and some organic matter. So click on the right hand side there to subscribe, put the thumbs up if you want to hear more. Come with me on this journey of discovery and the recovery of, hopefully, of my health, your health, if you're struggling, maybe giving you a meaning to live from this technical standpoint. Or if you're into motorhomes, van dwelling, I'll be doing some videos on my 60-year-old all-terrain motorhome, as I've already said. So welcome, peace, and catch up with you soon. Thank you for bearing with me. Poor quality video, poor quality sound, poor quality everything. That's just the way it is, but we'll judge by the content and not the production, eh? Thank you.